Two of the four courageous women accepted into the University of San Diego's Women PeaceMakers program this year are here to share their stories of peacemaking and human rights activism. Judge Najla Ayoubi of Afghanistan was forced out of her job by the Taliban, but later took public office to promote women's rights and education. Galia Golan of Israel founded the Jerusalem League and Peace Now, the Israeli peace movement. Welcome to Evening Edition.
Thank you.
Now, Najla, describe what happened when the Taliban forced you out of your profession.
Of course, when you remind me, I feel so painful, because when you have a career, you're a judge or you're an attorney, and you know your rights, but unfortunately you have been pushed home, not being part of the public life and part of the society. That was one of the bad experience and injustice that I faced in entire of my life.
You went underground for several years and then re-emerged and returned to your work in Afghanistan. What would you say the state of women's rights and education is in your country today?
Actually, after the fall of the Taliban, particularly building the constitution of Afghanistan or having constitution of Afghanistan, we guaranteed we have a guarantee of free education for women, and as well as women being part of the public life, particularly having equal access, equal responsibility in front of the law in Afghanistan. And now currently, after the fall of Taliban, we have, I would like to say that this is one of our achievements. Out of 7 to 7.5 million children going to the school, about 38 to 40 of them are girls going to school. This is one of the achievements that we have got. And also the situation of women, particularly women's rights. There are domestic violence, there are sexual violence. All of these issues are happening, but still we are working hard to make it better.
Okay, and Galia, what got you involved in working with the peace movement, and particularly getting women involved with the peace movement?
Well, I felt very strongly that women needed a voice. Altogether, I think the peace camp is really designed, amongst other things, to give people a voice so that there is at least some way to convey to the government that there's a very large public out there that wants a peace agreement, that's opposed to continuing the occupation. And women in particular, I think, need even more to be heard, because we're not generally heard. The Army is a very central institution in the country because we're in an armed conflict all these years. And so the voices that are heard mainly are men's voices, men who have experienced the war. Not that women haven't experienced war, but they're considered, the men are considered the experts, the authorities on what is so central to Israeli society, security. And women need to have a voice, and our voice has to be heard. Certainly Resolution 1325 from the United Nations recognizes this, calls upon governments to include women in peace talks and everything connected with resolving conflict.
In speaking of which, and I'll start with you, Najla, what is being a peacemaker to you?
To bring the unheard voices onto the table, particularly looking at the women at the grassroots level, that they don't have access to the policy level. Bringing their voices at the policy level that's what I'm doing.
And what would you say, Galia, if I had to say you're a peacemaker, at least here at the University of San Diego? What does that mean for you?
Well, I'd like to be a peacemaker. That is to say, I would like to be able to make peace, to have it come. At this point in time, we've been at it for many, many years, and not very successfully, although I think we have a very broad movement, both of women and men, who are pushing for a peace agreement and an end of the occupation. So for me to be a peacemaker is simply to keep trying, and I think in many ways to try to create or recreate hope amongst both peoples, Israelis and Palestinians, that we can reach an agreement, that it's possible, and we're doing everything we can to get there.
All right, if you had to say in a word, this is a terrible thing to ask you so quickly, what would you say is the most important thing somebody in the U.S. can do to help move peace forward?
at least support Afghan peace process, but not own the Afghan peace process. Give the ownership to the people itself.
And you're nodding your head as well for that.
I think the most important thing that we seek from the United States is to press the government, our leaders, to make a genuine peace talks.
All right. Galia, Golan, and Najla, Ayoubi, thank you so much for this. I want to let folks know that they can talk with you and meet the other peacemakers at the Women's Peacemaker panel discussion tonight at 7 at the University of San Diego's Peace and Justice Theater. You can also watch it online. More information at kpbs.org.